You are now listening to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Let the story begin.
One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin. Hold me down.
Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer podcast, and I'm your host, Greg E. Hill, the Culture Change Agent. You already know on this show we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generational leaders. And today I got a show for you. However, I got two major housekeeping things before we jump into the show. Number one, I know I told y'all many episodes ago, but now it's live on all platforms. My debut motivational album, The Thrive Print Volume 1, released today. 15 tracks of stories, keynotes, trainings from your boy from the last 2 years. And man, I put a lot of time into it. Shout out to my brother Sidney Evans, who audio engineers this podcast, who also produced my album, did all the background work, man. So shout out to my boy Sidney Evans for getting that done, man. And it's available on Tidal, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon, Spotify. You can find it, man. So definitely stream or even download or buy the album. I think it's like $9.49, man. So buy the album, stream it, do whatever. But I pray that you enjoy and are impacted by it, man. That stuff from my heart over the last couple years. And yeah, man, I've been working on it for a little while. So thank y'all for the support thus far. And I pray that y'all go cop the album. Second, I know last year around September and October time frame, we did a 30-day challenge and we just went on a roller coaster Monday through. And I know y'all like, yo, gee, I ain't hearing nothing about it. Hey, yo, chill out. It was an in-circle type thing. I had to work out the kinks. But this year we're bringing it back. When is it going to start? July 17th, this Monday. Yep, this Monday is going to start. Monday through Friday, I'm going to be sending you videos or things of that nature. So they all might not be videos, but I'm going to be sending you content each and every day to motivate you, pump you up, and inspire you to accomplish your goal. Also, too, we have our own platform this year, our own app. Well, everybody will be able to comment, to be able to update everybody on their goals, etc. So it's going to be like our own in-house community, which I'm excited for. Really, really am, man. So we got a lot more tools and a lot more tricks on our bag. We'll be meeting either bi-weekly or weekly. We'll discuss that over this weekend with the surveys once people sign up, man. But I'm really excited about tackling some of the things that I want to tackle, but also in the community aspect. So this is for anybody out there that has a health goal, a business goal, a personal goal, relationship goal, anything you believe that can be accomplished in 30 days. Go to GregEHill.com/30day to sign up. I'm telling you, once again, it's GregEHill.com/30day to sign up. And you can also find it on your phone via the show notes. So every episode, whether you have an Apple device, Android device, we have our show notes available when you click on the episode, and the link will be right there. So I know many of you are not by your computers. You may be driving, but you can do it all via your phone. It officially starts Monday, July 17th. Once again, you can go to GregEHill.com/30day to find more information about that. And I can't wait, man. My 30-day challenge is to run or walk 100 miles. And then a bonus challenge of mine is to complete all the audio recordings for my next book, which will be released September 24th, 2019. All right, that's enough bio stuff and enough energy for me. Let's jump into this show. This is a phenomenal show from two sisters that are doing their thing in the fashion and technology industry, and they're having an event coming up pretty soon. Matter of fact, let me get these dates on before I go, because I'm going to talk about it in the podcast, but I just want to make sure that y'all got this information. Saturday, June 29th in LA at the W. So you're going to find more information in the show notes, man. Enjoy this episode. I love y'all. Make sure you listen to the album. Make sure if you're working on some things, join the 30 Day Challenge. We need you there. And let the story begin. So let me read a snippet of their bios, and then we're going to jump right into it, right? So our first guest is a fit technology expert in the fashion technology space and the founder of Luxor and Finch Consulting. She received her undergraduate degree from North Carolina State University, College of Textiles and Fashion Product Development, and her master's in digital innovation and fit from Cornell University under the guidance of Professor Susan P. Ashdown. And in 2018, she received her certificate for digital product management, modern fundamentals from the University of Virginia. That's a lot of school and a lot of fit technology, digital stuff. I can't wait to ask about that because I didn't even know they even had those majors. And since the completion of her master's, she has worked and advised numerous companies, brands, and retailers in the fit technology space. She has published over 60 articles on the matter of fit and tech, a thesis on fit and perception and curated events, and panels on the subject of fashion and fit technology. As a consultant, she works to resolve the pain points caused by fit through technology integration. And through Luxor and Finch Consulting, she is able to focus on integrating technology throughout the supply chain to improve fit, educate brands on fit as a competitive advantage, and to devise sustainability solutions. Also, and the next guest, formerly of Amazon Fashion, has always worked on the cutting edge of e-commerce. Throughout her career, she noticed pipeline flaws in academia that continue into her corporate environment, which inspired her most recent venture, Girls in Fashion and Tech, an organization focused on education pipelines for fashion industry professionals and other creatives. In addition to her expertise in fashion and merchandising, editorial, and business development, she has also managed relationships with global manufacturing teams for one of the largest companies in the world. Her background in supply chain management gives her unique perspective to understand and solve the global issues we face in the industry, and she brings that interdisciplinary approach, I love that word, to everything she does. She is a huge advocate for community, specifically for women of color across the fashion industry, as evident by her ability to create spaces that support collaboration over competition. She also uses that expertise to teach merchandising as an adjunct professor. And in September 2018, they both co-founded and launched the Women of Color Fashion Brunch, bringing together women of color in the fashion, tech, and finance industries for networking and support during New York's Fashion Week. Then in March, they launched the WTF Fashion, in short is Will Tech Fix Fashion podcast at South by Southwest, man. So, we expecting a crazy bulky podcast from these bulky introductions, man. So I'm excited to have them on the show. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jessica Couch and Brittany Hicks to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, man, I was reading that thing. I was like, we here now, man. I'm ready to get into it, man. So first and foremost, every single guest that we have on the show, we always start off with either a quote or a mantra they live by, and then a story on how they apply that quote or mantra to their everyday lives. So I guess I'll allow Jessica to begin. Can you give us a quote or a mantra and then give us a story of how you apply that?
Okay, so for the business, the quote is everybody deserves their perfect fit. And that came about because I felt like that in fashion, it doesn't always cater to women who are curvy or have body types that are different from the norm. So like at Luxor and Finch, that's what we champion. Like we just want everybody in general, men, women, children, whoever, no matter what your body is like, to have their perfect fitting garments. And we do that through tech, and we do that through, just strategy and all these different methods to try to make shopping easier and just better for everyone who is not shaped or built like a fit model.
Okay. I love that. What about you, Brittany?
Yeah, I would have to say, so I have two, one for professional and then one for personal. I think for professional, it would just be that you don't know what you don't know. I tell students that all the time, just to stay open and always consider, be focused on learning, like always consider the next step, the next thing that you're like interested in, and that'll lead you down your path. So yeah, just knowing that you don't know what you don't know. And then I think for my personal life, for me, it's just count it all joy, just take everything in stride and keep moving. that's just how I try to like live day to day.
So let's do something interesting. Last, I think 5 episodes ago, I started this new segment for this season. It's called Find the Pulse, because every single show has its own pulse, its own energy, and is usually reflective on what happened last week or what the current mode or anything that nature. So if y'all two had to describe over the last week from today, right? Over the last week, one word to describe the last week, what word would you pick and why?
Say dedication, because, and I would say dedication because we're just at this point, even with like the brunch and then our personal businesses, where it's like all this work that you've been putting in, it's like you may not always see immediately, you know, the results of that work, but that dedication is important because it takes dedication to turn that corner. And I feel like Britt and I are both at these places where we're trying to turn a corner in careers and in what we're producing for people. And all this week has been about being dedicated, whether it looks like it's up or down. You just got to stay zoned in, 10 toes down to what you're doing, because if you give up too early, you're screwed. And then if you overthink, it's just going to be bad. So just dedication, like stay dedicated. And also I'm starting this 31 days of fitness because I turned 21 again. And, so, I wanted to dedicate for 31 days straight to kind of, you know, get my mind in a different place.
I love that. What's included in this 31 days of fitness?
So every day you got to sweat, like, and really sweat, like, and push yourself. Be conscious of what you're eating, like no late eating. And if you do, you got to do the intermittent fasting thing where if you eat late, you can't eat until later the next day. So just trying to be dedicated to fitness and health, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, like, you have to have discipline, but you also got to be healthy. If you're not healthy, you're not going to perform. Like you can't take a sick day, like when you have a 9 to 5, because like it is no such thing. Like you still got to be out here. So, you know, you just got to dedicate.
Now throwing it to you, B.
Yeah, I would say my word for this last week would be perspective. And so when I think about, it goes back to that whole thing of like, count it all joy. Like things are going to come at you. Things will change like day to day, even moment to moment. Sometimes in conversations, like you think you're going down one path and then the conversation changes and you have to really, Jess already said it, but that whole mentality of like 10 toes down, being present and like just being able to control your emotions, control your mental, and have the appropriate perspective to like get to your end goal. Jessica is so great in having as a business partner because she coaches me on doing that. She's been an entrepreneur much longer than I have. And so as we're just, you know, starting to branch out and grow our partnership, having the appropriate perspective, whether you're in corporate, in entrepreneurship, even in your personal life, like your thoughts control your emotions and your emotions kind of lead like the direction that you're going to take action. So you have to just keep that perspective always balanced.
That's so real.
And question before we actually get into like the start, always start with like the personal stuff as far as like your background and stuff like that. How long y'all been working together? How long y'all know each other?
We get this question a lot.
Cause y'all got like a sisterly vibe.
We do. We do. Have this. Okay. So first of all, shout out to LinkedIn who actually did its job and connected us. Right. So we connected via LinkedIn. We were interested
via LinkedIn.
It's crazy. Brought us together.
It did. Yes. It did. When technology worked.
Yeah.
So how did that work? You just saw on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let's link. Like,
first of all, as an entrepreneur, I'm hella scrappy. So like I have to hack and find people. And when I saw Britt, I was like, damn, then I saw her background. I was like, okay. And I was like, I want to connect with her because I know she knows what she's talking about. So then we ended up connecting and I saw her area code was 919. I'm like, like, yes. Like, and then we just had so many other similarities that we just clicked.
That's what's up. That's phenomenal. So, all right, let's jump into the backgrounds because I know, and I'll start with you. Jess. The background is outrageous as far as you're really focused in the fit and tech and space. But before you even get to like your focus and what even caused that focus, can you share with our audience a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Yes. So I'm from Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, you're from the Bull?
Yeah, from the Bull.
You went to Hillside?
Nah, I went to Durham Academy, but you know.
Oh, you went to you went over
Everybody
there.
says that. Yes, I'm an Academy girl. Okay. But I'm still Durham. And you know, I'm proud to be from Durham. Durham is the first Black Wall Street. I grew up in a place where there were a lot of Black entrepreneurs and a lot of Black people doing everything. We had a Black mayor. You saw Black owned businesses everywhere. We had Black neighborhoods. So I kind of got my spirit of entrepreneurship from obviously my parents who are entrepreneurs, but also from being in Durham. Durham makes you feel like you can do anything. Like it just makes you feel good to be Black and like, okay, I can do whatever I need. So yeah, I thought I wanted to be a designer. I was like, yeah, I want to design clothes. My aunt is a seamstress. She put me on to all that stuff. Like she taught me how to sew and all that. And that sparked my interest in the fashion industry. Plus, also like trying on clothes. Like I will change my clothes with my mood. Nobody can tell me what I'm going to wear because I wear what I feel like wearing because it's just an intricate part of my personality. Like I have to have that. So that's how I even got interested in like fashion. Since I've been young, I just change clothes. It makes me feel good. Feeling fresh is like, it's a very, like people always think I have like some like deep reason why I got into this. I like clothes. And I just wanted to wear more clothes. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So now let's walk us through your background real quick of, okay, graduate from North Carolina State University, fashion product development, right? And then you go into a specific digital innovation and fit. And also too, let's take a step back. Can you describe what fit technology and all that is? Because, right now, some people may know, but a lot of us is like, yo, we just put on clothes. So, and you got a master's in it. You got certifications.
Right.
Can you kind of break that down?
Right. So I'm going to give y'all the quick version so that our listeners don't get bored. So I graduated from NC State University, way back when in fashion product development, meaning that we got educated on the entire supply chain. So at State is one of the only colleges where you can see them like spinning fiber to thread. And when you can like have the machines that cuts the garment and you can sew it upstairs, you do that all in one business at the College of Textiles. It's its own campus. It's amazing. Now, when I graduated, it was shortly after the crash. And so our job placement went from about 98% to 55%. So we already knew like those jobs and opportunities were not going to be there. So it's a lot of people that came out with me that aren't in fashion anymore, but everybody got their roots there. I had worked in retail the entire time that I was in college. So I worked for Nordstrom. So I kind of was like, I love clothes. I love being around it. And then when I came out of school, I started an online store. So I took a small loan from my parents and I was like, I worked at retail so much I can do this. So I worked that online store. And what I realized, this is way before like Instagram boutiques became a thing, but I realized like my return rates were less than 8% as it related to fit because I used actual people to promote product, right? So like instead of just having models who look like models, I chose models who I thought represented my demographic that I was going after. And then I chose pieces that I knew from working in Nordstrom were not readily available to everybody. So I wanted to dress girls who looked more like me because that's what Nordstrom was missing. So I did that for 3 years and I started to realize like it's a lot of things that aren't in place that won't allow me to like develop my clothing line or to kind of like do drop shipping because tech wasn't there. So I kind of got this thought like, is tech going to integrate fashion? And if so, in what way? And how is fit going to play a part in that? So I moved to New York while my sister was at NYU. And I literally went from like owning my own business and feeling like I'm the boss to sleeping on her couch and working 2 internships to figure out, is this a problem with my little store or is this like an industry wide problem? And everybody like, you know, why would you stop working in a store to go chase something else? But I genuinely believe when it's time for you to move, you got to move. And you can't always explain it. You pivot when it's necessary, pivot quickly. I hated owning a store, but I mean like, so I wanted to do something else. And I know it was kind of crazy to go from owning to interning, but it mattered. So when I was in New York, I took some time out to intern. I realized like, oh yeah, they're not prepared for tech integration. I'm like, I'm smart enough to do the tech side, but I don't see anybody bridging the gap. So then that is when I decided to pursue my master's at Cornell. Actually, one of my best of friends, Ashley, was like, you should go to Cornell. That's how she talks. I was like, for real? She was like, yeah, they have a program for you. I was like, all right, let's do it. So I ended up going to Cornell and kind of carving out my own master's. And what I wanted to study is how will tech integrate and influence fashion. And so I got to pick my own curriculum. So I took courses that were in business, in engineering, and coding. I took computer science courses. I took ergonomic courses because what I wanted to do, and consumer behavior courses, what I wanted to do is have a really good understanding of how I could solve this problem of fit and technology. And so it allowed me to do that. And then I started writing about all this stuff when I was in undergrad because I was excited about it. And brands were like, oh, well, you know, we're having this problem. Can you help me? So that's how I kind of like folded myself into consulting. It wasn't, I had no idea that I would consult. I wanted to go to like work with a big brand, but then I just decided that okay, let's chase this other white rabbit. I'm an entrepreneur. Let's go after it. So what a lot of people don't realize is like clothing is mass produced and it's not made for you. So it can be really difficult to find what you like. And as products move more and more online, there's a disconnect between how people relate to clothing. If you can't touch it, if you don't see it on somebody who looks like you don't know how it's going to fit. So you're not very likely to try new brands. You're not very likely to buy new products. You're just going to stick with what you know. And that's a problem for the industry because right now, over 25% of all clothing is sold online. So like we have to get people to shop online. And the disconnect that I identified was the fit problem. So I've been trying to like tackle this fit problem since I came out of Cornell in 2015. Like, how do we resolve this? And when I did my thesis, I studied, what influences the purchase decision as it relates to fit. Like what type of technology actually gets the person to making that purchase decision faster? And then what are the key characteristics of people and how do we archetype those people? So like, all I'm really trying to do is make it easier for people to shop, period. Match people to product so that we can stop having so much waste and dead inventory. Because everybody's familiar with returns, right? So everyone's like, oh my God, it's a lot of returns. But what people don't talk about is there's $50 billion worth of dead inventory. That's inventory that never moves. So like take a look at Topshop.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Topshop just closed, right?
I didn't know that. Golly.
Oh,
yeah.
It's
closed?
a wrap. Yeah. I went in there yesterday, y'all, to shop, literally. And it was like zombie apocalypse in here. Clothes everywhere. Terrible. It was horrible. And then they were like cash only. I was like, I'm out of here.
Cash only. That's how they go
it's
out.
Like American Apparel all over again.
I was like, I hope y'all
cash only.
They're going out cash only.
Why are they going? I mean, the tax thing. They just trying to. They a big company to be playing that move.
They're bankrupt, man. So that's it. They can't do no more. And the reason why they're bankrupt is because brands think that you can just throw product at people and they're going to buy it. They think that you can just set up your stores like they always have, and people are just going to navigate their way through it. It's a total disconnect about matching people to product. So that is how I kind of started that journey. And why it's relevant to me and how I kind of like stick with it.
Man, that was a lot in a nutshell. And outside of that, I just took about just creating, like literally creating your own lane. We talk about it all the time on this podcast, but you exemplified that. And most importantly, the aspect of moving, like just move. You got to, like everybody call on this faith thing. Yeah. But when God tell you to move, your feet stand still. But it's just crazy. So, Brittany, when you go to starting your journey, I know your journey is a lot different. Your journey is it's more on the corporate side, correct? So can you just break our audience down because you touched on it, formerly Amazon Fashion. Before you even went to Amazon, you were all over the place. Go kind of share with our audience a little about who you are and where you're from as well.
Yeah. So I would say I started my career at North Carolina A&T, where I got a lot of exposure like in the finance space. When I went to school, similar to Jessica, actually further apart from the industry, I never thought I'd work in fashion. A story that she and I share is like when I was growing up, I always was interested in creative careers. Like I wanted to do hair. I wanted to like, I wanted to do everything because I've always been really, just enamored, right, by the way that women like pull themselves together, like that, just that culture and that art of how women present themselves to the world. It's beautiful to me. And I wanted to participate in that industry, but I didn't really know how. And my parents both worked in like finance and accounting. And so I went with what was familiar with me and what made sense. And so went to school, started out majoring in finance, did an internship in 2008 at Lehman Brothers. They went bankrupt that summer, which was like a crazy experience to be there in New York and like living through that. It was probably
crazy at Lehman because I mean, they had tenured employees and they see their whole lives crumble in front of them. You probably just coming in like, what the hell is going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was an insane experience to live through. But it all worked out because there I met a mentor who eventually brought me to Amazon. So I went back to school after that summer, changed my major to supply chain management. Full transparency, had no idea what that was. It was just like the degree program with the least number of courses that were different. So I knew I was going to graduate on time. And I was like, all right, I'll do this. I'll figure it out as I go. But once I got into it, I was like, oh, this is actually really dope. Like I'm learning a lot about like consumer behavior. I'm learning about how products are made. I'm learning about like international business. And then I ended up getting another internship at Harley Davidson. So I was in Milwaukee for 6 months.
Milwaukee.
I know. Crazy.
Hey, my mom from there, but Milwaukee's wild. It's cold
real
and
different.
wild.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have crazy snow stories. Cause in North Carolina, it doesn't snow like that. Like when it snows in North Carolina, we kind of shut things down. Not in Milwaukee. Yeah. That's another podcast. But yeah, I was there for 6 months, was bored out of my mind, learned a lot, but literally my internship was supply chain planning for the nuts and bolts that put together the motorcycles. So all the custom vehicles, I was deciding how many thousands of fasteners we needed to buy for that year.
Oh, man, no, that don't sound exciting at all.
It wasn't. But I learned what I needed to learn. And also while I was there, I got introduced to this whole idea of apparel merchandising, because the merchandising team also sat in the office where I was. So I would spend a lot of time in there just asking them questions, talking to them, trying to figure out what they were doing. So going back to school in my senior year, I was all right, I don't know how I'm going to change my career trajectory at this point, but I just took as many courses as I could in fashion merchandising, textiles, and then networked my behind off to get into a training program. So I started my career in corporate at Belk, just in Charlotte. Did that for about 2 years, left there, went to another retailer in Houston. And then that same mentor that I met at Lehman hit me up one day and was hey, I think you would really like Amazon fashion. I think you should look at roles here. And I kind of blew her off at first because I just didn't really understand the concept of what she was talking about. This was in 2014. So nobody was talking about e-commerce like that. Nobody was talking about Amazon and fashion like that. Just didn't even compute to me. And I didn't yet recognize the significance of being at a tech company that was trying to transition into the apparel space. So, but after a few conversations, I did a little bit more research, ended up at Amazon, and the rest is kind of history. But to Jessica's point about just, being ready to move, I just finished a 4.5-year stint at Amazon, worked on their retail team for the first 2.5 years. The last 1.5 years, I worked on our global supply chain team for private label and product development. And just throughout that entire process of my career, watching e-commerce go from omni-channel retail to, as Jessica mentioned, just a force to be reckoned with. 25% of all apparel is now being sold online. So we have the reverse supply chain to contend with. We have just an entirely different way of moving products from manufacturing to fulfillment centers to people. It's been crazy, just in the short 8 years that I've been working, to see how much the fashion industry has changed as a result of that. And so I definitely believe that, once you have developed your craft, or you feel like you've earned your expertise in something, being obedient to that idea of moving and making sure that you're just, whatever your spiritual path is, I pray to God. So I always try to align myself with obedience over outcomes, and just knowing that that path is laid out for you. So you have to move when it's time.
That's a word.
Yeah.
And this is why me and Britt work so well together, because I really value her experience in corporate. I love her jargon. I love how she can deal with people. Not saying I'm not a people person, but Britt is wonderful at client facing and talking to people and having those type of conversations. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're so siloed, you forget that you have to interact in a certain way. And she's so savvy with it. We're a good match.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It definitely helps out when you have somebody that, of course, y'all do y'all thing, you do your thing, but it's hold up, when we got with certain partners, et cetera, they can just take it and run with it and go from there.
And you can trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole different level of trust. Yeah. And that's neither here nor there. So, question, before we actually because I definitely want to start, because the next segment, I'm going to give y'all the layout where we're going to go with things. So we're going to talk next after this little sideway real quick. Women of Color Fashion Tech Brunch, talk about the brunch and just in general the event, then talk about the podcast. Then I got a couple questions on culture and specifically in fashion and then diversity in fashion and what that looks like. Not just from a race perspective, but also a gender perspective. Cause I looked over your website. There's some startling statistics about diversity, et cetera. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And then we'll close the show. So before I get to the Women of Color Fashion Tech Brunch, I know if y'all mentioned before, Brittany, and I guess I'll get you to start this time. Can you briefly share a little bit about Gift and what spurred that? And then after Brittany goes, and you can be meditating on this, Jessica, I do want to kind of expound upon Luxor and Finch, your consulting company, and how that's been as a full-time entrepreneur, 3 years working with, actually you've been doing it probably longer than that, but how long you been in consulting around?
Around 3 years.
Yeah, so I want you to go in on that because, like I said, we got a mix of audience from entrepreneurs, some people in corporate. So I'll be remiss if I didn't ask a little bit about your personal endeavors before we actually jump into the collaboration. So, Britt, can you take us away and what inspired you with the whole with the gift movement? And then you can kind of explain that.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about it or touched on it lightly, just shifting y'all through my collegiate career journey. But at the end of school, you know, I looked up and I'm like, I have this degree that I literally have zero intentions on using after school. Like, I know I'm graduating and I'm super motivated and passionate about working in the fashion industry, but none of my credentials say that I belong there. Right. And so I start applying for all of these roles and like executive training programs, because that's what everyone tells you to do when you want to work in merchandising. And I was really worried that because I didn't have a fashion degree or I didn't have like a textiles degree, that I wouldn't be qualified. But it turns out that once I started meeting more people like in these spaces and networks, that having a diverse skill set in supply chain and really understanding that full pipeline, it was to my advantage and to my benefit. And so as I just continued on through my career, I just saw how in corporate, most companies are looking for smart people. So like, that's baseline, like period, full stop. But in addition to that, I have always noticed how when you have a unique skill set or competitive advantage, it's really easy for you to look at problems and want to solve them differently, right? Like you just have a different approach and you're going to use different inputs to get to a different outcome. Sometimes the outcome is better. Sometimes it's, you know, unique, or sometimes it's worse, right? But it's just different. And so companies need that. They need that diversity of thought. And so as I just continued on through my career, I realized that most of my counterparts who I saw who had like the merchandising degrees either entered the industry at a different point. So maybe they were entering the industry as a merchandise assistant or through like in-store retail versus coming directly into these corporate office pipelines that were developed. A lot of the students that I was sitting alongside or my peers in other training programs, they had business degrees, they had technical degrees, finance degrees. And so that just gave them, again, that competitive advantage. And so there was this disconnect between what was happening in academia and what people were being prepared to do, right? And what you were being told you were going to graduate and do. Exactly. And what was happening in the workforce. Then as I just kept matriculating my career, I noticed some of the gender disparities that you talked about, where I don't think it was until the last 2 years of working in corporate that my senior level leadership was female. And so knowing
this is in the fashion space.
Yeah, this is in the fashion industry. I've only ever worked in fashion, really. And so retail, knowing that over 90% of the degrees that are awarded in fashion merchandising go to women, and then looking at the fashion industry and knowing that under 20% of senior level executives are women.
That's mind-boggling.
A huge
How does that work?
That is a really good question. And so I think if you are sitting in that environment, right, like you start to ask yourself that question, like, how does that math work? Like something's happening in this pipeline where there's a problem. And I mean, we know about gender disparities in matriculation into management in every other part of like the business world. So like, that's not a surprise. But I think specifically in the fashion space, where we know the customer is a woman, right? Like we know that she's not only shopping for herself, she's shopping for her entire household. She has the largest share of wallet. Like we talk about the customer using the pronoun her, because we try to think about like how she makes decisions as a consumer. It didn't make sense to me that our management doesn't reflect that ideology. And so that was really like what spurred the idea of, okay, one, with GIFT, so GIFT stands for Girls in Fashion and Technology. But one, I wanted to solve that problem of making sure that students had exposure, right? So if you are like Jessica and you're really interested in the fashion industry, maybe you don't want to be a stylist, or maybe you don't want to be a designer. But if those are the only things you know about, like those are going to be the paths that you pursue, right? So like we have to give people exposure to the full breadth of careers that exist in this space. Like there are literally thousands of things that you can do to be involved in fashion. Like you don't have to do the things that you see on TV. So exposing students to that, but also helping their parents, right? Bringing parents along for the ride. I feel like that was the challenge that I faced. And no shade to my parents. They're awesome.
Say fashion with parents, they think no money
like,
asking me
we're
for
not
stuff.
Doing that.
They took that dream away.
Yeah, like parents, I think Spike Lee said this, but like parents are the biggest dream killers. Like and it's not because they, want to hurt you or like they don't want what's best for you or they don't want you to pursue your dreams, but like they want you to be a fully functioning, self-sustaining adult. And if they don't see a pathway for you to do that with what your dream is, they might shut it down quickly. You know what I'm saying? And so I just think exposure in academia is super important and making sure that people understand the intersection of creative careers and technology and like how that's going to change the landscape. Mm-hmm. It's super pertinent to fashion, but it exists across all careers. Like there's not a single industry where technology is not infiltrating like what's happening right now. And so I think the sooner that we're able to expose students to technology and understand how they can use it to leverage whatever their innate skills are, things that they're interested in, and just have that competitive advantage that I talked about, like that's super important. And then the other piece of GIFT is curriculum consulting. So helping schools understand what does that look like. So if you are a fashion merchandising program and you recognize that your placement rates don't put students in the careers that they believe they're preparing themselves for, like what are some of the gaps in curriculum that you see, whether it's like computer courses or programming, just exposure, because the industry is changing. Mm-hmm. And I think that the curriculum and like academic piece is not changing with it. And then thing 3 is just researching and understanding what are the factors that are causing us to have these gender disparities that we discussed, gender and racial. But for right now, we've only talked about gender. So.
Yeah. You got to start. You got to walk before you can crawl, right? It's easy to get in the door with the gender piece. We already know that system. You walk in with the gender piece, and then you kind of switch the race. You go on the race piece, that door going to close. It's going to close fast to a certain degree, But, so now Jess, while you were now Brittany, when she was corporate, she's building this program, but you on the other side, working on your skill set, and starting your own business. How was this last 3 years been? And kind of work us through, you've already I read through it in the bio, but from your mouth, what Luxor and Finch does. Well, first of all, why that name? It's an interesting name. Yeah. And then also too, like the journey from when you started to now.
Ooh, the journey. We'll just start with the name. So the name, during my senior year in college, I took a trip to Egypt with this like group that all spoke Arabic. I was the only person who did not, but I wanted to go to Egypt since I was young. And in Luxor, the city that's close to like Sudan, all the people were just so dope. They just treated me like I was the best person ever. Everybody had this beautiful dark skin and pretty wavy hair and stuff. I was like, where is this place? So when I got back and I did my senior collection, I was like, I'm going to call my collection Luxor and Finch. I knew I wanted to like start a boutique, and I wanted the name to kind of be unassuming. So I picked having 2 names. Luxor represented the type of woman who likes sexy stuff, leather, like all these dope things. Finch represented like a lighter, like lace and like dainty things. And since I'm a Gemini, I like the duality of nature. And at the time I was thinking that Luxor and Finch represented the duality of women. Women always have to be opposing things. You got to be sexy, but you got to be sweet. You somebody mama, but you somebody lover. Like, you got to be praying, but you also got to, do whatever it is you got to do. So the name kind of represented that. So as far as the last 3 years, I think people think entrepreneurship is like this glamorous, wonderful thing. And I tell people, if this path didn't choose me, I would not have chose it. I don't think. I think that it is something about it that's addicting. There's always the perks of like, I have this vision. I'm going to build it out. I work for myself. I can work from anywhere over the world, but you're really working really hard. And so the past 3 years, I was talking to a financial person about this yesterday. This is interesting. Past 3 years have been about outdoing myself, understanding my own limitations, like playing up my strengths and just never stopping. I think that it is not easy to get something off the ground. I view my business like I would a child. So right now I'm like, my business is a toddler. Like it's walking around, it's communicating, it's doing things, but it still has to be close to me. It's not quite where you can be like, I'm going to leave you home alone and I'm going on vacation. It's like one of those things where it's like, I still got to monitor you, but you're up and you're running. It has taken a lot of dedication. First of all, I'm a Black female and I work in tech. and I work in fashion. So the first thing people think when they hear fashion is like, oh, you're dumb. Like, you work in fashion because you're dumb and you just want to, wear clothes. And it's like, we work in $1 trillion industry where you try selling something online that costs $800 to somebody that's a multi-sensory engagement piece, and you're pushing this product through the internet. They never get to even touch it. You got to convince them to take out their wallet. And you talk to me about what type of hustler you are. It's very difficult. Fashion is not a game. The supply chain is complicated. It's a lot of money. These are people's lives. So when you come into the room, you're a Black female and you don't look, you don't look like the normal, or like, well, you don't look like you work in tech, or you don't look like this. You get a lot of pushback. So I've had to deal with a lot of pushback just from saying that you're in tech and you're not a coder. But my thing is like, my strength is I'm a high level strategist. I see the big picture. I understand where we're going. And I love taking things from infancy into actual like greatness. That is what I like. That is what I can do. That is what my vision is for. I don't need to code. I can hire a coder. I don't need to be the engineer. I can hire you and I can tell you exactly what you need to do. The difference is you can't tell me how to do my job. You can't train somebody how to have a vision. You can't train them how to take all these little pieces from working in retail to owning a business, to leaving that business, to understanding what this industry needs. Those are some things that cannot be taught. So those last 3 years it's been interesting because you constantly build and destroy. You build and destroy and you try it again. You fail a lot, which is cool. And then you try other things and you keep going. And people are always there be like, why you just want to do so many different things? It's like, that's what I want to do. That's how I got here, is from diversifying my skill set and quickly understanding this is not the route that we're going to go. It has been a blessing. And like Britt touched on, and you said this earlier, it's a different level of faith to say, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to trust it and meet God halfway. I'm going to jump out here and get it done. And I ain't going to worry about nothing else. Like everything that's stored up in heaven is going to flow out to me. Cool. But I've also it's a lot of manifesting. It's a lot of meditating. It's a lot of tears sometimes. I just read this article that was like, entrepreneurs are depressed. And I'm like, oh, yes. I was like, yes, we are. We are depressed sometimes. So it's been interesting. It's a self-discovery journey. And it's also holding on, because 3 years ago, I was too early in this industry. 3 years ago, nobody cared about fit, nor could people connect fit with low conversions, with going bankrupt, with all these issues that you're seeing. So now people are like, okay, let's discuss this fit thing. And being that I'm so niche, it puts me in perfect position for it. And I would say always go niche. Get as specific as possible on what you're going to do and what you specialize in, because that has saved my life. Yes, when you're early, you're out here writing articles and building content. But when the time comes, you are the expert in that field and you have built it up. You've put in them hours. You've studied, you've written, you've done everything you can. So then when people are like, what can you do? You like, okay, let me flex. Let me show you. Let's roll. But again, being a Black female, I always tell people it never hinders me from being a Black female. I think it's the best thing you can be when you walk in a room, but you get a lot of pushback and you got to learn how to just push past it. And that's actually exactly why we even got together to form the brunch, because we felt the same way. Me and Britt, when we finally did link up or just chat, it was like a breath of fresh air to be like, you're in this industry. You're so dope. You're cool. What do you think about this? Let's bounce ideas. Let's try to get something done, because a lot of people claim to collaborate. A lot of people like, oh, I'm all about women and Blacks and blah, blah, blah. But then when you see them, they don't even speak to you. And you word. So that has been an interesting thing as well. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, you segued right into, you say right away where we wanted to go as women of color, Fast Tech Brunch, because at the end of the day, you hit on the head at the end. A lot of times, and I was going to ask y'all earlier, but specifically in the Black women culture, there's a stereotype in women culture, but that it's hard to work with one another. But you also seen online a lot of stuff going viral on collaboration. We love each other. We got to build. But then it's like the people that say that are the people that never build. They it's kind of a weird conundrum. So can y'all explain to our audience, and whoever go first and do y'all thing, or it can be a joint, whatever, the women of color Fast Tech Brunch, what it is, and also most importantly, what makes you excited about it and how can it be different? Because if you look online, there's a lot of brunches going on. There's a lot of pseudo collaborate, like you said. So what makes y'all unique? What gets y'all excited about it, and what is it?
Yeah. So We are super excited about this brunch for all the reasons that Jess said, just finding people and being able to connect with them in the industry, people who can validate your experience, people who can be like, girl, I see and I know and I understand what you're going through. I think for us, we had no idea that this event was going to turn into a series of events.
Yeah, because when I told y'all last time, I just thought it was going to be a kickoff. We're going to do the South by Southwest, and now I look online. We going everywhere. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how it happened. Like in August, first of all, you asked us earlier, and we never really answered the question when Jess and I met. We met last August.
What?
And
I thought y'all known each other for years.
No, we met last August. But see, when you're doing that, obedience over outcomes, like God will put people in your life.
Y'all done gave me the show title, man. Obedience over outcomes. Woo,
yeah.
Making it easy for the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I feel like God will position you like wherever you'll inherit the things that he has for you. And so I don't know, like the relationship that Jess and I have is like super special. And it has really like, I don't know, it's opened some doors for us and just made some things happen that we couldn't. That did happen to us. We were at the Brow Bar. No, seriously. And this lady was like, so wait, what's going on with your relationship here? And we were like,
only because we complimented each other. And this is the problem. People think, going back to what you said about like, it's hard to work with Black women or stuff like that.
Black women.
Part of that is true because there are a lot of hurt Black women. And what makes our brunch unique is number one, we're going to hug you when you come in. We're going to thank you personally. We're going to know your name and we're going to treat you like, thank you. We are happy that you're here. This is for you. Number two, at our brunch, we want you to exchange with somebody. We want you to have a trade for. We want you to leave with something. It's not just about like, oh, we're having a brunch so y'all can think we're dope. We're having a brunch because we need these networks in place. And we want you to feel comfortable to reach out to us, reach out to the person that you were beside. We create dialogue. We have this testimony part of our brunch that everybody really loves. We just ask everybody to like kind of stand up
church
and like say their name and why they're there. And it is like the most beautiful part of our brunch because people really get into that. They want to talk about, this is what I've been feeling in the industry. This is what I need. Even if it's somebody that's like, I need a job or I need to connect. It's okay. Just stand up and say that. And I think that I don't know about other events, but you could go through our email list and poll them and ask them like, why do you like this brunch? Like, is it really what they say it is? And I guarantee you 100% of the people will be like, absolutely. Because we not fake. Matter of fact, we even talked about that in one brunch, like networking 101. When you see another Black woman or a woman of color, period, smile, period. You want to know why people may not feel open enough to come work with you or talk to you? Maybe you scowling. Smile, do a nod. The Black person nod, like, hey, I see you, Black person. Yeah, do something like that. And I think that we embody that at our brunches. It's not for us alone. It is for everybody there to feel like y'all really got a community because it is hard to find support in this industry. And you can go faster together. So that's what we believe in.
Yeah. And really just like creating that energy, right? That you want to like get back. Like if you enter into a room and like you don't like the energy, like you have the power to change that energy. Like you don't have to just accept like the places that you walk into and like operate in that space. And so for us, it's all about just bringing together entrepreneurs, innovators, influencers, anybody that's in the fashion tech space. Like we genuinely care about what you're working on. We want to give what you're working on a platform with other people who understand your experience, know what it feels like to walk in a room and say, I work in fashion tech, but you got on a red lip and some Louboutins and people are looking at you like, girl, you don't know anything because you're a Black woman. Like that is a very real lived experience that we all can share. And so knowing what that feels like and then wanting to use your expertise to like collaborate with another woman who can share that experience and like knows that feeling and like leverage her expertise to create something bigger and better and greater so that we can all network to like grow this industry. Like the pedagogy of fashion technology is like still relatively new, right? So like what that will become, what that will be 5 years from now, who knows? But we're laying the groundwork now to ensure that if the 50 women we put together in a room in every city across the country know one another and they can leverage each other to like continue growing their businesses, then we'll be that much further ahead in 5 years than what we would be just trying to do it on our own and relying on allies to help us. And we think, so I do want to be clear because we got pushback on this in our February brunch. We think allies are super important. You have to have that open dialogue and communication. But the real purpose of the brunch is for support and just like leveraging that network and also to your point, empowering women to know like sis, you don't have to just inherit the energy that you like enter into. You can change it. Like, make sure that you are like bringing the energy.
And
that
everybody
you
who's
feel.
at the brunch wants to be there. So it's like, I think it's great
Yeah.
that the way we set it up, it's like people come who really want to connect. So it's not like at a conference where it's like, I'm just here because my company made me come. It's like, no, I paid for this because I want to come. I want to share this experience with other women because I want to help and I want to be helped. And I think that's a great part about it as well.
I love that. I want to be helped, and the testimony allows people to see. Because a lot of times at conferences, specifically at conferences, it's so big that it's hard to really showcase and share how you want to get help or what you need. Like and then sometimes you haven't built a vulnerable atmosphere where people are open to be like, hey, I need a job. Like, I'm here because I really need a job. Like, that was my last 50.
Absolutely.
So, that's why
that
we
is
did
so
it.
true. And I think, even with the entrepreneurship piece, like, when you're an entrepreneur, you're so used to walking into spaces, right? And selling yourself, selling your business, talking about like the value that you add. But you need support too. Like, you need spaces where you can say, you know what, like, this is hard. Like, this is the hurdle I'm facing right now. Like, who can help me with this? And I think that's a very real experience that all entrepreneurs go through. And being able to let down that armor and say, like, yes, I add value in a lot of ways, but like, I also need help. Like,
I also
that's
think
a real
we're in
thing.
good timing because conferences are overwhelming and they don't produce quite the results that people want, not for the brand, not for the attendees. And I think people are craving more intimacy within their network. So I think that we provide that level of intimacy, but we also 65% of people that come to our brunches are executives. We get people from the top fashion and retailers, companies from all over. They send representatives. They want to be present. They want to not only hear, but they want to, recruit. They want to connect. So that is more valuable for people being on that one-on-one level with them versus bumping into them at a conference, trying to take a picture of their tag and then being like, can I email you? And it's like, no. So we try to, alleviate that issue by just making a space where you can have conversations. So much of our brunch is like, go network. You can eat, you can testify and listen to this panel, but go chat with, it's like church. Tell your neighbor something nice and y'all go talk.
Yeah. Quick plug. When is the next event? Because I know y'all have something coming up, but I want to hear you. When's the next event?
Yeah, so our next event is on Saturday, June 29th at the W Beverly Hills. So we're coming to LA. It'll be, So we'll be doing our second West Coast event. We just hosted our first West Coast event in Seattle at the W Bellevue. And so we're continuing that partnership. And we're super happy that they see the value in what we're doing.
Hey,
so
I gotta be like y'all when I grow up, man. We done been all across the country. I stepped foot in the W one time. One time. Y'all ain't even started the podcast. I need that. That's what's up, man. So also, real quick, I know you mentioned this briefly, but I do want your thoughts on it because I think, Brittany, you played in a role where your job was to be an ally of sorts. So now, as y'all go on this road, how do you navigate allies when the brands are participated on women of color, right? So how do you leverage companies that really don't have the ally? Because I see a lot of times where companies start off for the culture, for the people, and then sometimes you may need a little outside help. And when I say help, I mean not necessarily on the planning, whatever, but maybe they have resources and maybe y'all can meet each other halfway. But what is your thoughts on the ally culture and getting assistance? What does that assistance look like, and how can y'all make it work that everybody knows what's going on? I know that convoluted question,
assistance from brands or like assistance within these corporations.
I'm more so like on a brand perspective.
Yeah, so I'll start. I think part of it is just about transparency, right? Because when you're starting those conversations and you're starting those negotiations around, what can I do for you and what can you do for me? I think a lot of the conversation changes and pivots when you're able to be transparent and clear about like what it is that the goal is. And so we've seen that a lot where we have, brands that'll approach us and they'll want to be a part of the brunch. And they may not necessarily be representing women of color, but they are allies for women of color. And so we feel really strongly that those relationships are important because if we don't leverage our allies and we don't have open and honest communication about what those relationships are, what they look like, how they help us, how they hinder us, then it's really just all the women of color like corralling together, right, to talk about what our challenges are. But we need allies to like move this issue forward, to really understand the intricacies of the plight, not just from our perspective, but from other perspectives, right? Because all of those things are going to be a part of the solution. I do, though, feel that you have to be careful in those conversations to not give away your power. And so that to me is like,
what do you mean by that?
Understanding and just understanding and knowing your value, right? So when those same allies come to the conversation or come to the table telling you, trying to like push their agenda or trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? If they're trying to push their agenda, or if they're trying to essentially like help you communicate, navigate, dictate the issue, I think that becomes problematic, right?
Yeah.
Like you should always be driving the conversation, like for what the issues are, what the solutions are. And I think if you have allies that are willing to listen, then those are healthy relationships and positive relationships that can be solution oriented. But you definitely have to be engaged with allies who are open to listen. And I think that's like the difference.
So let's take it here. Y'all have a podcast that y'all debuted. First and foremost, how was the South by Southwest experience? I never got a chance to follow up with y'all on that. Like, how was that?
It's funny you asked that. South by Southwest was great for our brands. However, we went through what a lot of, people who started business go through. Sometimes you have to cut people and deal with legal things. So it was very interesting that it was actually, can I tell this story, Britt? Can I just abbreviate it? Okay, so what happened was,
the abbreviated version.
We're going in the South by Southwest. We had another partner and we got slapped with a lawsuit literally the day we're all like flying in, which was very interesting because sometimes you'll do business with people and they have other ulterior motives. Although South by was great for our personal brands, I'm not sure they're in support of women who look like us. Yeah, I said it. That's right. They're not in support of us.
A lawsuit the day of?
It was
y'all.
bogus.
I know y'all like, yo, we just come here to
have a good time.
What?
Yeah,
we just coming here to have a conversation, have a good time.
Fashion and tech, but
a lawsuit? Y'all haven't even jumped the podcast.
And it was a lawsuit to get extra time on the South by Southwest stage, which isn't even real.
Yeah, it was a bogus lawsuit, but nonetheless, it happened. We had legal teams involved. It was really crazy, but all things work together, man. Like you just gotta.
It was good. Yeah,
moving.
because
Count
you know what?
joy.
The blessing was that we were there and that we were able to expand our network and our businesses by being on that stage. People cared about what we talked about. People showed up for our event. That made us feel special, and great things have come from that. Now, Brittany, will we go back?
I am not sure that we'll participate again in that format. But anything's possible.
I think, unfortunately, that is what happens sometimes when I feel like when the events get too big and too spaced out and it becomes more of like it's a brand thing, like a grand thing is because you need that on your profile thing. Hey, we presented, boom. But then when you go there, sometimes it can be like smoke and mirrors. And then the people there smoke and mirrors, not like the event, but like, yo, I'm here because I've had friends that, a lot of money went into stuff and they go to a room and they made a bad mistake of not promoting themselves as much. Nobody's there. They're like, yo, I came to South by Southwest. I'm on the panel, diversity panel, black panel. It's like, but at the end of the day, luckily, like I said, y'all have the bright minds to say, hey, we can still package this. And but that's the crazy thing about certain industries. It's good and bad that you can package stuff in a way where you can get funding, you can get stuff off the grip. And it's like, hold up, man, you got people that really haven't even put in a lot of work. But I guess that's the value of partnership and with the right people, because you get the right rides in the room. You can just have a blog with like 20 posts, but you have it put the right way and you get the right strategy on Instagram, and all of a sudden you got partners.
I will say that the right partnership, you can do anything. And that's why I really love and respect Britt, because we came into South by with like 10 things against us, including broken nails and bad Uber drivers and all that stuff. But it's like having someone who helps you and reminds you that we're going to make something out of nothing no matter what. That's what hustling is about. That's what trailblazing is about. That's what forging your own path is about. You got to make something out of nothing. And it was like at several times during South by, one of us was like, no, we're going to be all right. And we're going to take the high road. What did Michelle Obama say? You know, they go low, we go high. So it's good. Like no matter what gets thrown at you, you got to always see the bigger picture. And we were able to work South by for our favor, regardless of every single obstacle that, you know, came against us. We had a room there. We recorded our first podcast there. We did it. It was lit. We met great people and we were like, all right, we may not ever come back again, but we got everything that we came here for.
So now can y'all share with our audience, I don't know if it's launched just yet, but the podcast, what it's going to be about, because we've already talked about the brunch and that movement is expanding outside of Los Angeles date. They have some other dates in the future, and we'll on the show notes, we'll have all that information in the future. But tell us more about the podcast, like what it's about, what can people expect and all that good stuff.
So the podcast focuses on, will tech fix fashion? And we both have experience with fashion and fashion tech. We're just highlighting when tech integrates into fashion and is successful, when it's not. We have three different segments, right? Statement pieces.
Yep.
Diet diversity. And
Will Tech Fix Fashion, which is just where we highlight different technology and entrepreneurs and businesses that are in that space.
And so our goal is to just highlight all the cool ways that tech helps and when it hurts and what goes wrong. My favorite part is the diet diversity piece where we kind of get to like read the industry when they get diversity wrong. And like, because, you know, right now it's a buzzword. Everyone's talking about, yeah, we're so diverse, but it's like, okay, but we're still doing black face sweaters. So how diverse are we really? So we get to talk about those topics openly and kind of discuss like what's really going on. What does it look like? Who's just using it as a buzzword and then who's getting it right? So that's going to be fun.
Is it already available on all platforms or is coming?
Yeah, so we have 3 episodes available on all platforms, as well as a teaser if you don't have time to listen to the full version. But our full first season will be available after, what month is this? In July, after our next brunch event.
And y'all just gonna drop the whole season, Netflix style.
Yeah, we're dropping one whole season, Netflix style.
Okay.
Check it out.
Okay. I see. That's some exciting stuff.
But we want to also make it for, you know, people who are working in the industry and need to have that overall scope of what's going on with fashion tech, what's going on with diversity. Like, we want you to come and get to hear our individual expertise and then like just our take on the industry and what we think is valuable for somebody working to know. So it's going to be very entertaining, but also educational. And gives, you know, we're trying to open doors and keep fashion tech on the forefront of people's minds and businesses.
So before we end that session, what is the name and again? Like what do people need to type in?
Yeah, so you can type in WTF space fashion.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure I have that direct link to all the platforms in the show notes. So as we come to a close, we got a rapid fire round, but I did want to ask a couple just culture related questions because like I said, I know majority of y'all, your emphasis right now is centered around fashion, centered around technology, etc. So from a variety of different perspectives, because I'm just seeing from the outside looking in, I know a lot of young women, unfortunately, that are love fashion. They graduated with fashion degrees, but it's still really hard out there to get in space. So outside, of course, finding your way to a Women of Color Fashion Tech Brunch, if they can't make it to the brunch, what if they're on the East Coast? What does the future of the industry look like as far as opportunities for people of color? Is it all reliant on certain individuals like yourselves to step up, or do you see the industry turning for that?
Well, I'll say we see a lot of companies that are actually creating departments that are heavily focused on recruiting more diverse individuals, and not just diversity of, you know, your race and your color, but diversity of thought. So I think that people are interested in kind of, I hate to say filling a quota, but at least that gets people in the door. So they're hiring more people of color to be in these positions to try to like scout and help bring other people in the door. But like, that's also what we're doing. And we're actually collaborating with a lot of great people. Like Misa Hilton has a fashion education program for students, and she's basically preparing them for careers in fashion. And so like Britt works with them to understand what, you know, at their curriculums and what they need to learn. Like we're trying to add those pieces on to what we're doing. And that's what our network is about. Just holding people accountable to say, hey, we're in these positions. Let's get more of us there. What would you say, Britt?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, my response would be that education is going to be like a big piece of it. And I think understanding, if you are a student and you're in school now, looking at your curriculum and saying like, okay, the creative piece, the aesthetic piece, like all that's cool. But like, if you in fact don't plan to be a creative director, or if you in fact don't plan to be a designer, like what are the components that are missing from this curriculum that are going to inhibit me from successfully running a business, or will inhibit me from successfully communicating with people who work in technology? So if they're the developers or the coders or any of the people that Jessica referenced before, I think we're going to see a robust overhaul of curriculums in the next several years across like all fashion schools, fashion programming, because my opinion is that a lot of these curriculums are outdated and they're not preparing students for what the industry will look like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. So that's one piece. And then I think just more dialogue with companies about what it means to not only recruit diverse talent, but to retain diverse talent. Like diversity inclusion, like we talk about that a lot with like hiring, but once people are like at these companies, what does it look like to create an environment where they feel like they can show up to work, be their authentic self, and contribute for the reasons that you hired them? Like you want them bringing their perspective to work every day. And if people aren't comfortable, they can't do that. So I think continuing the conversation and then the whole academic piece
and we both went to institutions that have fashion programs. So like we're really trying to get them involved as well into understanding the importance of multidisciplinary education, because the fashion jobs of tomorrow will be tech integrated. You will need to know the language, how to speak to people. You don't have to know how to code necessarily, but you'll need to know how to talk to coders. And if you do code, that's great. We want people to know that you don't have to, move away from fashion if you have these really great technical degrees. Like we have a place for you here. And if you can think in both ways, you can be a part of this.
And our last question before the rapid fire round, and you've heard this question before, B, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself if you had the opportunity to kind of give some advice to your 21-year-old version of yourself? And you can, being that you already done it, B, you can go first.
Okay. So I did answer this question at A&T. And so that was, that was a really interesting day. That was a really good podcast. I would say today, be patient with yourself. Because again, you don't know what you don't know. And I think your entire career, what I'm learning to accept for myself is that your entire career is going to be an evolution. I think when you're in school or when you're young, like you just have this idea in your mind of like this destination that you're going to or arriving at. And that when you get there, like, you'll feel successful, or you'll feel good about your career, or you'll just feel a certain way. And I think it's just all an evolution, and you have to celebrate all the small wins, all the small victories along the way. And just keep looking back and learning, but like, don't get stuck. Just like be patient with yourself, keep growing, be hungry and like thirsty for knowledge. That's something that I definitely take to heart by watching Jessica and how she's developed her consulting firm. Like she just never stops learning every single day. She's reading more. She's trying to understand more. She's like just writing more and always trying to contribute.
You gotta make that a gift.
But she's constantly contributing to just the body of knowledge and the body of work in the fashion technology space. And I think it's just, yeah, girl, you're welcome. It's the truth. And I think just if I could tell my younger self anything, it would just be to be patient and just do the work, and like everything that you're building will like fall right into place.
Amen.
I would tell my younger self, get over yourself early and then be kind to yourself. Because if I would have known I was going to go on this entrepreneurship journey, maybe I would have read all my self-help books earlier. But I think that is get out your own way. Like whatever your habits are that are going to keep you from getting to what you want, get rid of them early when you identify them. If others identify them, listen, don't take everything so personally with it, but like, better yourself. And I would say also be very kind to yourself. You're going to fail, boo. I think I should have told myself that, because I was a very high achiever and life came easy for me. Grades are easy. Schoolwork is easy. I was one of those people that like, I didn't have to study and I could probably still get A-B on stuff. So when entrepreneurship came and you fail and fall on your face so many times, you don't know how to deal with that when you're used to winning. But I think like you're still winning, but be kind to yourself, like, and celebrate your wins and pat yourself on the back and learn how to be in a healthy relationship with yourself. Like, it's good to be critical because you need it, but it's also good to be like, you're doing a great job. Let's just take a day to eat ice cream and sit on this couch and relax because the problems resolve themselves. Like, let's not isolate ourselves so much. Like when we're feeling upset, I would have told myself a couple of those things because I think I can be my greatest critic and also I used to punish myself like, oh, we didn't get this task done, punishment. But now it's just like, listen, it'll get done. Just, love yourself a little better.
Man, that's some very thoughtful and very applicable advice to everybody that's listening to the show. So we reached the end and now we have our rapid fire round. I asked a series of 5 rapid fire questions and hopefully we can get rapid fire answers. Y'all ready to rock? What's the best piece of advice that y'all have never received?
Mine would be, hey, put your head down for 3 good years. Don't worry about a relationship. Don't worry about anything. If you grind at the end of that grind, there's a silver lining and a rainbow for you. Just focus. If someone would have said that earlier, I would be greater, faster.
I've gotten a lot of advice over the course of my lifetime. And so I can't think of anything that I haven't heard from somebody else.
Brittany has heard it all.
Is that an answer?
I've
heard it all. I'm telling you.
If you could add one habit and take away one habit, what would it be?
Whew. I'm telling you. So my habit I would take away, these eating habits, like.
Brittany, you act like you just what?
Nah, let her explain herself.
Okay, listen. Let me tell you about this over 30 Hill. Like, it's real different on this side of the aging process. So, rapid fire. Living in Seattle, you become much more conscious of your quality of life and just the things that you eat. And so noticing that from North Carolina, moving to the West Coast, actually Texas, moving to the West Coast. Yeah, I would have to change my eating habits. That would be the thing. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So.
You're going to break history doing that.
Seattle with Brittany. Brittany can throw down. She's hella fit, but she be eating. And I'm like, Britt, if I stay here doing this with you. Anywho, what was the question?
If you could add one habit and take away one habit, what would it be?
The habit of waking up at 5 a.m. every day. I need that. Like if I could do that, I would add that. If I could take away a habit, it would be like this nervousness that I get when I have to answer emails I don't want or talk to people on the phone when I don't want to. If I could eliminate that, I'd probably be more thorough. Girl, yeah, I get a little anxious. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to. You never notice I'll send things to you like, Britt, can you handle this?
Man,
so I did notice that. Didn't know you were anxious, but now I know. I think the habit I would add, going to bed on time would definitely be mine. So just mentioned, I wake up at 5 every day, but I don't always go to bed on time. So I deprive myself of sleep and like, that's not good.
Oh man. Even on weekends? You wake up at 5?
Not always on the weekends.
But Monday through Friday, you ain't, there's no, okay.
I gotta be up. I gotta get to it.
That's what's up. That's exciting. All right. What is your favorite book and why? Your faces, man. Y'all faces, man. I gotta keep the video on more often, man. I'll be seeing some crazy stuff these last.
Okay, so I'll go first. So I have a lot of favorites. I'll tell you a favorite that I've read most recently. Eloquent Rage. I think that book is amazing. I read it at the end of last year and I think it's incredible because it takes all the things that we're feeling as Black women, the way the world treats us, the way society, has conditioned us to think about ourselves, for other people to think about us. And it articulates it in such beautiful language. I think every woman should read it, to just have the language to talk about the things that she struggles with. It's like an amazing book.
I would say Iceberg Slim, The Story of My... No, I'm just kidding. That's a horrible book. I started reading. I was like, I can't read this. I think my favorite book of all time right now is this book called A General Theory of Love. It was written by doctors about the absolute scientific need for love and affection and what happens when you don't give it and why we're programmed to be more loving, but we exist in a society where like we don't get to always like have it. And that book like changed my perspective on just like emotions and care and like empathy and all that. And I really like that. Can I say 2 books?
Sure.
Okay.
Do your thing.
Okay, cool.
If she says 2, I have 2.
And so like,
go ahead. Cause I've never heard these
Yeah,
books. So like, yo, this is dope for our audience.
The other book that I like is The Untethered Soul. The Untethered Soul is this book that teaches you like every voice in your head is not your own and how to separate the voices that are not your own so that you can focus on the things that you need to and kind of like encourage yourself better. And in fact, I feel like that book is a great starting point for anybody who wants to open their thoughts into like, you know, what does life look like when I treat myself better or when I'm not stressed or if I'm anxious all the time? Like that, The Untethered Soul is like really dope for that.
So my second book would be Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Therapists recommended this for me and I read it twice last year. And it really just talks about like self-actualization, what it means to have your like emotional health and spiritual health aligned. And just the freedom that you have from being able to walk in that. And like, you know, there's all these books about like religion, religious theology, how we relate to one another, et cetera, et cetera. But this really goes through like the hard work of like unlearning, like recognizing, acknowledging, and then unlearning the things that you've learned as like your social norms, behaviors, things that you inherited spiritually or otherwise from your family. You know, in the Bible, like God talks about how you'll inherit things to the 3rd and 4th generation, like just understanding and conceptualizing all of that and then crafting the identity that like you want to like walk through life, I think is so important. So I would recommend for anybody to read that.
Love that. Love that. Love that. All right. Our last 2 is actually, let's go to our last one. If you're the president of the United States, what's the first thing you would do?
Oh, reparations.
Yeah. Yep.
I would roll back some of the powers of these corporations, period. And I would make them responsible for all this trash that's everywhere. I would tax them and I would tax their future generations for the sins of their parents and their grandparents who all got rich off slave labor and things like that. They owe this country a better service and they owe us some type of reparations, like Britt said, for them amassing wealth at the expense of other people.
Yeah, you got to like reparations on one side is cool, but they got to get taxed as well. Like you just can't, cause then nothing changes. I mean, yeah. And then also to these finance corporations, these banks, they got to be held accountable as well. The trash people, but definitely these banks, it can go on for days as far as these bailouts and it's just that's a, man, this is turning into a whole different podcast. All right. So we done with that, man. So every single person that comes on this show, always answer. This is outside of rapid fire round, but this is always critical to the show because I started this podcast really just to change the culture, specifically for the communities of color. And this show, this question is right out there. So if you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African American culture, what would it be and why? And y'all got to sound deep on this. This is the last junk of the show.
I would change the way Black men value themselves because it affects our entire community, period. And I would change how they value themselves, what they consider love, all these strange things they've been taught about being too tough or just the level of ignorance. And I'm not coming down on them. I think Black men are beautiful and necessary pillars of our society, but I would change their strength, their emotional strength and capacity, because I think we need them to be strong so that our family structures are stronger and so that we can kind of progress sometimes, not even in a relationship sense, just like working beside them and having them for support. Like, I think, I don't know, I read this book called The Boy Crisis, and I think they need more support, and I think everybody should read that book.
I think what I would change is that, like if I had a magic wand and could just like make it happen, I'd make sure that we all knew our history. I think it's like so important. And it kind of goes back to like where we started the podcast. Like Jessica talked about being proud that she was like from Durham and like knowing the history and the legacy of entrepreneurship there and like wealth building. And like, I think, kind of along the same lines of what she's talking about. But I think for me, when I think about like some of the things that we struggle with, it's just because we don't know our history of greatness and like the legacy that we have as a people. We're so much more focused on, I guess just like the negativity that's associated with our history and like believing that it started with us like being brought over here like in ships. And like, while that's important to note, like, I think what's more important is like that we're a triumphant people, that we constantly overcome, and that like we've been systemically oppressed, and like that just doesn't diminish our greatness. And so I think if we focus more on that, it would just give us this inherent identity, right, of like and legacy of greatness, and like we could use that to propel ourselves and like move forward, because it's all about perspective.
What?
So your history is
Man,
important.
that's some phenomenal answers. This has been a phenomenal show. Y'all have made us laugh. Y'all dropped jewels and shared a lot about the stories that I think a lot of people, once they hear it, specifically the new audiences that are in these spaces would are going to appreciate and enjoy. So with that being said, first and foremost, I want to thank y'all for giving us well over an hour of your time.
Thank you.
Real talk. It's been a privilege and an honor, and I'm humbled that y'all here. So as we close out, where can everybody find more information about your businesses, podcasts, events, all that good stuff? So I guess I'll start off with Britt, then Jess, and I'll close us out.
Yeah. So to find out more information about my business, you can go to girlsinfashionandtech.com. For our brunches, you can check us out at wocftb.com or follow us on Instagram at WOCFTB.
Yep. To find out more about Luxer and Finch Fit Technology Consulting, go to luxerandfinch.com, at Luxer and Finch. And you can also follow my personal account at _Jessica Veronica _.
Okay. Say less. So Minority Trailblazer Nation, make sure once this episode drops, let people know you enjoyed the show, all that great stuff. And also too, as always, I need y'all to do two things and two things only. Number one, if you listening to an iPhone, you dare not leave out without leaving a review. So make sure you go ahead and drop that 5-star on us. And then number two, make sure you changing the freaking culture. Good night.
Bye.